The great among these spirits the elves name the Valar, the powers of Arda, and men have often called them gods. The lords of the Valar are 7, and the Valir, the queens of the Valar, are 7 also. Well met, friends, Yoiston here with another Beings of Middle-earth video for you all today. This time we will be discussing the Valar, or gods of Tolkien's works. As their individual histories are very long and descriptive, I won't go into a great amount of detail about each of them. Rather, I will talk about their greatest deeds during their time. Let's begin. Our first mention is actually no longer accounted as one of the 14 Valar after his betrayals. The greatest of the Ainur, the group who sang the world into existence, and most powerful of the Valar is named Melkor. This Lord of the Valar, who is most knowledgeable, is later named Morgoth, meaning Black Enemy, for his crimes against the elves of the Noldor. This is the first Dark Lord of Tolkien's story, who sought to dominate all lands and creatures he could, as he was a very jealous being who wanted to create his own minions. Alongside Manwë, Ulmo, and Aule, Melkor was one of the first beings to step foot on the earth. From Autumno and Angband, Melkor would rule, and bring his conquests to the other Valar and free peoples of Middle-earth. He brought ruin to the first and second light sources of the world, the lamps of the Valar and the 2 trees of Valinor. Even after this, Melkor committed the first murder in the lands of Aman, and stole the 3 Silmarils that held the light of the 2 trees, resulting in the War of the Jewels, and eventually the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age of the world. At the end of the War of Wrath, Melkor was cast beyond the walls of night, into the timeless void beyond the world where he resides still. I will definitely talk about this character again in his own epic character history. Moving on now to Melkor's brother, Manwë, or Sulimo, was the leader of the Ainur, king of the Valar, and greatest servant of Eru Ilúvatar, the god of all. He lived atop Mount Taniquetil in Aman with his wife Varda, and ruled the Valar from there. In the world of Arda, Manwë was the lord of the winds and airs that had helped him build the world with Aule and Ulmo, and he best understood Ilúvatar's will. Thus, he was completely free of evil, and he couldn't comprehend it. After the elves awoke, Manwë invited them to live with the Valar in Valinor. However, his mercy allowed Melkor to be freed of his first imprisonment, which would eventually lead to much hardship. After learning about elves killing elves in the first kinslaying, Manwë banished the elves from Valinor, but he remembered them still for their goodness, and had Aule the smith fashion the vessels of the sun and moon for the elves and the men that were to come. During the First Age, Manwë sent his messengers to watch over the Eldar. These were called the Great Eagles, and they served Thorondor, chief lieutenant of Manwë. Once the War of Wrath was through, Manwë banished his brother Melkor beyond the world, so that some measure of peace may be known to Ilúvatar's children. Manwë still rules in Aman. Manwë's wife, Varda, or Elbereth as she was known, was the Queen of the Valar, and Lady of the Stars. She was the most beautiful of the Valar, as Ilúvatar's light shined in her face, and she had created the stars and constellations. The elves revered her most out of all of the Valar, as the first sight that they had seen in life after their awakening were her stars. She filled the lamps of the Valar with light, collected the resin of the 2 trees in her wells, hollowed the Silmarils, gave the sun and the moon their courses, and established Eärendil's star. She was also the first to distrust Melkor, and she was his first enemy, and one of the 2 Valar he feared most. Ulmo is next. As the lord of the seas, rivers, and all waters in Arda, Ulmo helped fashion the world, but he had no home or wife in Valinor. Rather, he lived in a place called Ulmonon, beneath the sea. Alongside Varda, Melkor feared Ulmo the most, as the sea could not be tamed. Ulmo most directly opposed Melkor out of all of the Valar as well, and interacted most with the Free Peoples. Ulmo is responsible for urging Turgon to build Gondolin, and for sending Tur to Gondolin, and for saving Elwing so that a Silmaril might come to Valinor. Next is Aule the Smith, or Mahal as he would be called by the dwarves. Aule was the lord of the earth's natural substances, and in the beginning he fashioned the look of the world. His greatest creations are the vessels of the sun and moon, the lamps of the Valar, the chain Engainor that held Melkor, and most of all, he is renowned for the creation of the dwarves. He had grown impatient for the children of Ilúvatar, so he created the dwarves. However, Aule the smith thought he committed a crime against Ilúvatar, so as he prepared to destroy his creation in the dwarves, Ilúvatar stopped him. After the creation of the 7 dwarven fathers, Aule had taught them Khazd-dûl and smithwork. Now Ilúvatar gave them life, and they were put to sleep in different spots in Middle-earth, until after the awakening of the elves. Aule's wife is Yavanna, the giver of fruits. She was responsible for all growing things in nature, and lived in pastures. She knew that the world would need trees, and the trees would need guardians. So Yavanna pleaded with Manwë, and Manwë prayed to Ilúvatar, and Ilúvatar created the Ents, or tree herders. It was her music with Niana's tears that created the 2 trees of Valinor, and if Feanor had given her the light, she could have remade them after their destruction. She also created the tree of Galathilion in Tirion, whose descendants would be the white trees of Gondor. The next Vala on our list is Oromë, the huntsman. During the years of the trees, and after most other Valar secluded themselves, Oromë still hunted in the lands of the world on occasion. He first came across the elves after they had awoken beneath the stars, and he befriended them, calling them the Eldar. As the most powerful of hunters, Oromë openly defied Melkor, alongside his hunting hound Huan, who he would give to Celegorm, one of Feanor's sons. He also had a great steed named Nahar, and a horn called Valaroma that could be heard over all other horns. The Eldar could hear this horn when he was hunting Melkor's servants. His wife was called Vanna, the Ever-Young. She was the younger sister of Yavanna, and had the greatest influence over the flowers in Arda, and her servants, Melian and Ariane, had aided her in tending flowers in her gardens. The next one is a grim Vala. Mandos, or Namo, was the doomsman of the Valar, who resided in his halls where the dead would go. He pronounced the will of Ilúvatar when commanded to by Manwë, but he was not malicious like Melkor was. He simply provided the judgments of Ilúvatar. Some of his more famous actions were imprisoning Melkor after his first war with the Valar, announcing the doom of the Noldor that banished the elves from Valinor, aiding Beren in coming back to life after being moved to pity by Luthien, and giving half-elves the choice of mortality or immortality after the coming of Eärendil to Aman. Mandos also had a hound named Gorgumoth that guarded his worst prisoner Melkor. His siblings were Urmo and Niana. His wife was Varié. Varié the Weaver made tapestries of history, and they would cover all of Mandos's halls as time and the ages went forth. After the death of her husband Finwë, Meriel was returned to life to weave the fate of the House of Finwë for Varié. Niana, the Lady of Mercy, was responsible for all grief and sadness throughout Arda. Her part in the music of the Ainur was one of great sadness, and so sadness came to be in the world. She mourned for the world, and for the destruction that Melkor wreaked upon it, but it was also her pity that helped free Melkor after 3 ages in captivity. She dwelt in her halls near the halls of Mandos, and her tears fed the 2 trees of Valinor. She mourned for their destruction also, and through her tears one last flower from the trees came to be, and so the sun and moon were made from it. She was Olorin's mentor, and wore a grey hood, so it is likely also that Gandalf wore grey in reverence to his teacher. Now we come to Oromë, or Lorien, the master of dreams. He was responsible for dreams, desires, and visions. He and his wife Este dwelt in the gardens of Lorien, in the land of Valinor. It was here where Meriel passed away after giving birth to Feanor, and she was given peace. Later, while Varda wanted the sun and moon to ever be aloft in Ilmen, the atmosphere, the prayers of Urmo and Este allowed for day and night, so that sleep may be had by the people of the world. Varda heard these prayers, and she made it so that while the sun or moon was in the sky, the other was in Achaea, or the encircling sea. Este, Urmo's wife, was responsible for healing the wounds of the hurt and weary. She dwelt in Lorien on an island of a tree-shadowed lake, and oftentimes the Valar would find refreshment in the fountains of Urmo and Este in Lorien. Melian also served Este for a time before departing for Beleriand. However, Este did not go to the councils of the Valar, and so she was considered by the other Valar to be the chief of the Maiar, and not one of the Valir, or ladies of the Valar at all. Now we come to the last 2 Valar, Tulkas and his wife Nessa. Tulkas was the champion of the Valar, and was the last of them to descend into Arda. When the two lamps of the Valar were created, Tulkas wedded Nessa and had a great feast. Afterwards, Melkor destroyed the lamps, and this surely angered Tulkas. Before the creation of the elves, the Valar deemed that Melkor should be imprisoned, and this happened to Tulkas' delight. During the war for sake of the elves, Tulkas wrestled Melkor, and bound him with Anganor, which had been forged by Aule. Even after Melkor's release from imprisonment, Tulkas stayed distrustful of this dark lord. The last Vala on our list is Nessa, the Dancer, and she is ranked least among the Valar. She was as fast as a deer and danced in Valinor, with deer behind her. During her wedding to Tulkas, she was robed in flowers by Vana, and afterwards their dwelling was a place of mirth and revelry. She, like many other lords and ladies of the Valar, desired peace after the flight of the Noldor to Middle-earth, and so the hiding of Valinor took place. Among these 14, or 15 Valar if you count Melkor, 8 of them are considered Eretar, the High Ones, and greatest in thought of the Valar. I shall list them and the lesser Valar on screen, as well as their family tree for you all. As they had started off spirits, there really had been no familial connections, but in Ilúvatar's mind he saw them as such. The same could be applied to gender, as the spirits really only took on gender when they came to Aman, as they saw fit, through their own temperaments and clothing. From the Valar, we may reflect what we are like as people. Though we may weep like Nianna at times, we should also find the mirth and joys of Nessa the Dancer. The Valar act as certain character archetypes of Tolkien's Legendarium, and they inspire us and the characters of the works alike. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who you think might enjoy it. Let me know what you all think about the Valar in the comments down below. If you'd like to contact me more directly, please join us on Facebook and Twitter through the links in the description below, and subscribe to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. I am humbled to be a guest on a new podcast called The Perfected Geek tomorrow to talk about my journey so far on this channel, and my passion for Tolkien's Legendarium, so please look out for information regarding that podcast coming soon. I'm really honored to receive such an invitation. As always, thank you all for your incredible support. It means the world to me. And thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, my friends.